I wanted to make a longer video about this because I've made a shorter video about it, but it's a lot of information. So we see in Daniel 7 that there's a fourth beast. This is the final beast. It has 10 horns, Daniel says. But he kind of breaks it up in verse 23 and 24 of chapter 7. He says, the fourth beast is a fourth kingdom upon the earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms and shall devour the whole earth and tread it down and break it in pieces. So this is what the fourth beast does. The fourth kingdom. Okay? But then it says, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. So how does this work? Are they all one? Are they all united? You know, um, right then do they form and then like do they form this beast and then trample the earth? Or does the fourth beast tread the entire earth and then the 10 kings come? Because how this breaks it down, it sounds like the fourth beast is what tramples the entire earth and then the 10 kings come. And this would make sense biblically because that's basically what the Roman Empire did and with a picture of with like Herod, and because Herod was installed as a client king. So Rome trampled the entire earth back then, and then they installed client kings to rule and over certain areas. And they would charge them taxes, so they would have to pay tribute to Caesar, They were semi-autonomous, independent, but they were in Roman territory because they were conquered by Rome. So they would have to pay tribute to Caesar, pay Roman taxes, and it saved Rome money rather than having to maintain a military there and all that. Uh, they would just have those client kings installed there. They would collect the taxes, and if uprisings came, they would just send militaries and such. So when you read 23, it sounds like the fourth kingdom devours the entire earth. And then in verse 24, 10 horns shall arise, right? It doesn't sound like there's, these 10 horns that decide they're going to trample the entire earth. It sounds like the fourth kingdom tramples the entire earth, then 10 kings shall arise out of that after that happens. So it sounds like the fourth kingdom tramples the entire earth and then, appoints client kings. And if you read Revelation 17, which talks about these, really breaks these down, it says in verse 12, the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings, 1 hour with the beast. So they receive power. They receive power with the beast. So, sounds to me like the beast is the one that probably tramples the entire earth, and then he gives power to these kings to rule as client kings. Um, so I think that's definitely an important thought to to take into consideration, because I think for the most for the most part, everybody's always thought these are just 10 kings that are going to get together, form one coalition, and trample the entire world. But biblically, I think, especially when you read on, like in Daniel 11, verse 36 and forward, it's speaking about Herod, which was a client king. Herod was appointed by Rome to rule over a certain area. He was a picture of the final, like, rebellious leader, right before the return of the Messiah. So, Um, so I think what happens is the fourth kingdom comes, tramples the entire earth, and then the ten kings are appointed. And then, you see things in scripture where, uh, and I think this might uh, kind of go with what other people kind of interpret about scripture, where they've often thought like Israel is going to be the one that, you know, takes a bunch of gets in a big war, maybe Psalm 83 or Jeremiah 49, and then retakes a bunch of land, like, retakes Jordan and Lebanon and all this other stuff. And with this interpretation, what I'm giving, it might be what it is this fourth beast is what takes all this land and then appoints client kings over it. And it might be an ally to Israel, because you also see things like there's going to be a highway from Egypt to Assyria, stuff like this. The five cities in Egypt are going to speak the language of Israel or something like that. God's going to set His throne in Egypt and different areas like that. So this could be this could especially be, during that period, especially if this fourth beast, you know tr- because what Rome did was they controlled all of, like, all of a lot of the Middle East, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Israel. They controlled all that and appointed leaders over that. So if this beast tramples them again, and like what the Roman Empire did, if they trample them and appoint a king, and that's, friendly to Israel, well, that could be why, they are speaking, you know, the Hebrew language, or that could be why God's throne is going to be established there. Um, you know, that could be the case. So it's definitely something to take into consideration that I haven't heard this interpretation come from anyone really. But from what it sounds like to me, is the fourth kingdom is the one that devours the entire earth, and then the 10 kings come after that, and they're installed. They're installed as basically client kings, because remember, like I said in Revelation 17, they receive they receive which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So they're handing their power and authority to this beast, this kingdom. Sounds like a client king, right? Because that's what a client king does is, although they're somewhat independent and autonomous, they're still economically, politically, militarily subordinate to the beast. And we know that if it was just, if it was just 10 kings that, you know basically form a confederation and then trample the entire world, well, those are just, independent nations that do that, right? But this final beast isn't going to be that, because there's going to be a mark of the beast. So I mean, there's going to be the beast is going to be the one actually in control, and everybody has to take the mark of the beast. So these 10 kings aren't they aren't just like, hey, we're friends with you, but we're also, doing our own thing. No, they're going to receive the mark too. They're going to have to receive the mark too. So they're, that makes sense if they're kind of more appointed or approved, because they're basically going to be, an ally, a friend of the beast. So definitely something to think and consider um, going forward. It's a different thought, different interpretation than what you normally hear. But when you read it like that, it sure sounds like what happened back in the day is going to happen again, where there's going to be a Roman Empire like kingdom that devours probably most of that Middle East, appoints kings after that that are, approved by them, and they're basically client kings. They're going to receive the mark of the beast, which is going to be the that fourth kingdom. They're not just free to do their own thing. They're going to receive the mark of the beast, and they're going to have to be one with him. They receive power with him because he appoints them. So, thanks for watching.